Hi everyone, it's Carlin here at May Blossom Design. And first I just want to say thank you for clicking on my video and for watching. I appreciate that. And now let's get into the video. So I posted a video just a few days ago that required you to have a chuck to trim with. And I realized after making that video that I've never shown you how to make a chuck. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I make and keep my chucks on my shelf for at least 6 months. The one that I have now, it has been on my shelf for at least 6 months and it stays leather hard. I keep it, I do it the same way. I've used it so many times. It's probably close to reclaiming it, but I know that lots of people use theirs for way longer than 6 months. So I'm going to show you how I throw them and how I keep it so that I can use it for multiple times over and over and over again. And yeah, let's get right. So making a chuck is not very hard. There's just a couple things that you want to keep in mind. I used to use a dark clay. I don't anymore. When I did, I had separate chucks for all my clays. So if you have different colored clays, you want to keep that in mind because you don't want to be using, say, a red chuck on a white clay or vice versa. So right now in my studio, I just have 2 different types of clay, one with a speckle and one without a speckle, but they both have the same base. So what I do is I always make my chucks out of the lighter colored clay so that it's just easier. But anyway, you can use whatever clay you want, whatever clay you use, do that. The next thing you want to remember is that for larger pieces, you're going to need a larger chuck. Same with small. For smaller pieces, you're going to need a smaller chuck. I have a small and medium sized chuck, so this one is going to be a larger chuck. Now, the last thing that you also want to remember is that you need to make your chuck sturdy enough to hold whatever you're putting into it. So if you're throwing a piece that is, say, 3-4 pounds of clay, you're going to need a chuck that can handle the weight of all that clay. Because when you make a chuck, you make it cone shape so that there's more weight on the base than there is at the top, so that everything is a little bit more sturdy when it's moving. So you want to remember to keep that in mind. So this is probably 2.5 pounds of clay that I have. I don't need a super large chuck, but I need it larger than what I have. And then I think the last thing to remember, I think the last thing I said was the last thing, but this is actually the last thing, is that you need to remember that you need to make your chuck tall enough and wide enough for the piece that you're throwing. So if your biggest piece is 4 inches across, well, then you have to make sure that your depth is minimum 5 inches and your width is a little bit less than 4 inches, because you won't have any room if you don't. So let's get to throwing. So what I do is I like to leave my base a little bit thicker, just because I do trim a foot, and I will show you how to trim them in this video as well. I'm going to go through the whole process, throwing them, trimming them, and then I'll show you how I keep the existing one that I have. I'll show you how I deal with that one too. And for your chuck, it is really important that you center your clay really well. You're not going to have a good chuck if it's not centered. So you just want to cone as much as you need. This is a bit of a hard lump, so I might be coning for a while. I won't make you watch all me coning, but coning is very important, so don't skip out on it.
Maybe I'll fold them. But I want them to flow away. And just know I have another drawing there.
Okay, so once you get it centered, just drill down. Like I said, I keep my base a little bit thicker because I do trim a foot onto my bottom, and I'll explain to you why I do that. And then just open up your form. And again, I'm making a bigger chuck, but the way you do it works the same for everything. But this one is a little bit larger than what I normally make. I'm a little bit off center, but I'm hoping I can get it back. So then again, just like everything, always compress your rim. So important. Okay, so slow down your wheel and then just begin pull up your walls. So it's also important to remember that with a chuck, you want this type of shape. You want wider on the bottom, thinner on the top. And you also want to make sure that your walls are thick enough to accommodate the weight of all the pieces that you are trying to trim. Because if you throw a piece that is 3 pounds and your chuck has thin walls and can't hold on to it, you're going to have a total mess on your hands. So just continue pulling up your walls as evenly as possible. And again, continue to cone in. And always compress your rim. So now I know I'm going to have to trim my rim because it's a little uneven. And also continually take the clay out of the base because you don't want your base to be super saturated. Okay, I think I'm going to pull one more time. Okay, so then next I'm just going to measure my piece. I'm going to make sure this one is just about 5 inches tall. It is 3.5 inches wide, which should be fine for my pieces. Let's do it one more time. I'm just gonna pull a little bit more. My walls are about 1/4 inch thick, so they're thick, but I do have a lot of clay left on the base, so I'm gonna do one more little pull. just in case I ever throw anything that's like really big. So then clear out your water, and then all I'm gonna do is just cone in or collar in, not cone in. Collar in just a touch. Compress my rim. Then I always like to make sure that I trim the top off because I like to really make sure that my rim is level and even. And it'll also tell me if I am still center as well. So then I just collar in a little bit more. Take my trim tool at an angle, and I'm going to make sure that I trim anything excess off the bottom. Then I just take my wooden rib and I just really compress my walls, and I get all that excess slip off of there. There we go. So yeah, if I look down, I can see the bottom. It's hard to show the cone shape on camera, but there is one. So then again, I'm always compressing my rim. Always, always, always. Then just going to rinse my hands. And we're going to wire it off just like I wire off every other piece from my wheel. And just before we wire it off, I'll let you know what it is. So this one again is about 3 3/4 wide, and it's 5 inches tall. So that's a fairly large chuck. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your wire tool and just wire it off your wheel. If you have bats, by all means, go ahead and use them. I don't use bats, so I don't. And then just pick it up off your wheel. And there you have it. So I'm gonna let that dry to leather hard. We'll come back, I'll show you how to quickly trim it, and then I'll show you how I keep all of my chucks for at minimum 6 months. So our chuck is now leather hard. It's a little bit on the softer side, but I'm okay with that. So all I'm gonna do is wet my wheel head decently. I use the suction method. If you don't like that method, by all means, please use lugs. Totally fine by me. But this is how I prefer to do it. So then you just want to center your chuck. And all I'm going to do, if you have one of these little like turny things, use those to kind of keep your piece down. I very minimally trim my chuck. Like, I basically just get the edge off of it. Make sure my base is flat. Now, I do also, like I mentioned before, give my the bottom of my chuck just a little bit of a base or a foot. And I do that because I find that I get a better suction when I go to do it, because I always use the suction method. It is my preferred method of trimming. But if you don't use a suction method, by all means, just make sure you have a level base and you're good to go. But because I do put a foot, I just trim my foot a little bit, and it doesn't have to be a lot. basically just enough to get a little bit of a suction, but I left quite a bit of clay, so yeah, okay. You can compress your base and then you know that it'll stay nice and solid. So then I just, because again, doesn't have to be pretty, just has to be functional and level. And there's our chuck. So yeah, there's our chuck. It's as simple as that. Now, if you're using it right away, go ahead and use it and then cover it. If you're not using it right away, then you are going to want to cover it and cover it well. Make sure that it is totally airtight, and then you can just put it right on your shelf. And that's how I make my chucks. I promised you that I would show you how I save my chucks. So as in, I've had the same chuck for at least 6 months, probably more, but at least that long. So it just sits on my shelf like this, wrapped up. So whenever I go to use it, if it doesn't feel rather hard or it feels like it's too hard, I just dunk it in some water and then set it down and I use it. Works great every time. When I'm done using it, all I do is beside me I have my cleaning water. Whether it's dirty or clean, I don't really care because this will just probably, I won't even reclaim it. Well, depends. I may reclaim it, may not, doesn't matter. But yeah, all I do is take this, I give it a few good dunks in the water, and then all I do is I wrap it up airtight and put it right back on my shelf. And that's where he sits. And it's as simple as that. So if you do this with all of your chucks, you will save them. We just made Chuck Senior. This is Chuck. And Chuck Junior is still up on my shelf from a few months back. So yeah, it works great. And yeah, works great. So if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. If you do your chucks a different way, also let me know down in the comments because I'm always up to learning something new or doing something different if there's a better way of doing it. But yeah, otherwise, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me when I'm making content for you guys. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye guys.